At this point, the war has already spread across Europe. Britain is holding on. Germany has pushed deep into the Soviet Union. And if things weren't complicated enough already, they are about to become global in a very real sense. Because up until now, one major power has been watching from the sidelines: the United States. Technically neutral, carefully observant, and quietly supplying aid to countries fighting Germany through programs like Lend-Lease, which is a polite way of saying we're not in the war, but we are helping quite a bit. But that situation would not last. Let's slowly shift our focus to the Pacific, because while Europe was dealing with Germany, Asia had its own growing conflict. Japan, an industrial and military power, had been expanding its influence for years. It had already invaded parts of China in the 1930s. It needed resources: oil, rubber, raw materials, and many of those resources were controlled by Western powers, particularly the United States, Britain, and the Netherlands. Tensions grew. Economic sanctions were imposed. Trade restrictions tightened. Japan faced a difficult choice: slow down expansion or secure resources by force. Historically, it chose the second option. On the morning of December 7, 1941, Japanese aircraft launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. It was early, quiet. Most personnel were not expecting an attack. Waves of aircraft appeared suddenly over the harbor. Battleships were hit, airfields were bombed, ships burned. The attack lasted only a couple of hours, but its impact was enormous. The United States, which had remained officially neutral, was now directly involved. The following day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress. He described the attack as a date which will live in infamy. And shortly after, the United States declared war on Japan. Germany, in turn, declared war on the United States, and just like that, the conflict became fully global. Now the war stretched across multiple continents: Europe, Africa, Asia, the Pacific Ocean. It involved massive armies, enormous navies, and rapidly advancing technology. And slowly, the balance of power began to shift. Let's return for a moment to the Eastern Front, because this is where some of the most important turning points would occur. German forces during Operation Barbarossa had advanced deep into Soviet territory, but they had not achieved a decisive victory. And as winter approached in late 1941,